So any hot spot of inflammation, let's say it's in our knees, is associated not only with an electron deficiency or an antioxidant deficiency, but very specifically with a positive charge. Now, that's really interesting. So this calcification inflammation can be neutralized by a negative charge electrically, and that's actually what Clint Ober discovered. And that's one of the things I've been working on with when we do conferences is anybody has a long-standing chronic pain, what we do is we take an electrical rod, stick it in the ground. There's no electricity at all. It's just the Earth's electricity. And we run that right to the point where the pain is. And within minutes, generally, even if that pain's been there for months or years, the pain is alleviated. I had this happen in Costa Rica, actually, on this last retreat we did. There was a woman who was very, very out of sorts because she had flown all the way from Northern Europe to Costa Rica, and her sinuses were whacked out. And I literally put a rod in the ground, ran that electrical wire right to her, right underneath her, right above her eye, right next to her nose. There's a meridian point there in Chinese medicine that she was really feeling a lot of pain there. I mean, in fact, she wouldn't even let me touch it. She was in such pain. And she just put that on there, and it alleviated her pain and allowed her to get through that very excruciating sinus experience.
Excellent. Yeah, it's amazing. With simple approaches. I mean, that's really one of the keys and clues, that if you could find a simple approach that's so effective, I mean, you know you're on to something really great.
Yeah, that's what I love about what you're doing too is you give the information out there, and the whole industry benefits. And I do want to mention that to everybody who's listening right now is, Dr. Mercola's work is benefiting an entire industry. There are people out there who financially capitalize on what you're doing, Dr. Mercola, and you don't get any credit for it, but you do it anyway, and your team does it anyway because it's good for people, and that to me is a noble enterprise, and I appreciate that. And everybody out there, I want you to appreciate it too, because what you're doing is awesome work for an entire industry. It nourishes all of us.
Well, thank you, but we certainly need to make a living, and we have our expenses, and fortunately, the site is able to provide for those. But what the intention, the whole purpose of our mission is to change the system. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense for us to do that. Yeah, and while you were talking about, it occurred to me that I was on a field trip last week and was meeting with some research scientists. And I don't know if you've heard this, but you need to know this. This astaxanthin is amazing. Now, it works for 3 different things. It actually protects against sunburn, so that if you take like 4 milligrams of astaxanthin, you won't get sunburned. But it can actually prevent the development. I mean, and there's animal studies I reviewed on this. It eliminates cataracts, and it eliminates the most common cause of blindness in the United States, which is age-related macular degeneration. Now, if you have it, it won't treat it. It'll just stop it from progressing. But it actually prevents it from happening to begin with. And then lastly, there's sort of an extension of this, but I just had some initial confirmation of it. It's probably one of the best things you can do to if you're going to fly. And at the longevity conference, I mean, you taught me a phenomenal tip, which was so common sense, because it's to fly at night. But if for whatever reason you're not able to fly at night, then if you could take this, you're going to protect yourselves from that radiation damage.
This astaxanthin is just something else, isn't it?
Oh,
So
gosh.
Answer. What is the best source of astaxanthin? Do you have a product out now that has astaxanthin?
We're working. We actually are working with a company we're going to probably be able to provide it, but I think they do this supercritical carbon dioxide extraction, so it's removed in probably the most highly active source possible and concentrated for us. So it's extracted from algae. That's probably it's a seafood component, and it's in salmon and it's in krill, but it's in higher concentrations in algae. So it's taken from there and concentrated and used as a supplement. But it's a bit pricey, but it's so effective. I've actually just started adding it to my regimen. I'm so convinced of the data. It's just amazingly, crazily good stuff.
When I was writing my last book, the Superfoods book, one of the things that came up was Jacques Cousteau's research, and he said the future of nutrition is in the ocean. and I can't help but think that every time I hear about astaxanthin, because it seems like it's one of these miracle things. I've always loved it. Every time I've taken it, made me feel like $1 million. Actually, $1 million isn't worth much anymore. It made me feel like $1 billion.
That's true.
And it's just something awesome. And that's what we're really requesting of everybody who's listening right now is start participating in this grand health revolution that is occurring, that's allowing all these amazing products to show up into health food stores and allows you to get access to them. And I do want to mention, because we're on to this astaxanthin thing, there's the whole piece of this that comes out of the ocean, the marine phytoplanktons that are out there that are now being sold, that have all the phospholipid characteristics and help even to deliver the krill oil. So I want to mention that I will take marine phytoplankton with krill oil, with megahydrate, with reishi mushroom, all together, just for those of us who are sophisticated or listening right now going, wait, I could do that. That is one heck of a blast off. Not only is it super powerful anti-inflammatory, but it's a super amazing brain nourishing strategy to get your brain sharp. So everything is clicking. Your memory is there. Joe, every day people say, what can I do for my memory? Every day people say that to me. What I just said is something you can do. Marine phytoplankton, which is a liquid product. I really like the Oceans Alive marine phytoplankton that's out there. I love the krill oil that you have. Thank you for doing that. You can take then the megahydrate and then say reishi mushroom capsulated powder, and boom, you do all four of those together. You are singing and dancing.
Absolutely, yeah. And then sometimes too, it's not so much what you're adding in, like all the superfoods you just mentioned, but it's what you're removing. So, I mean, the most common cause of the most common source of calories in the U.S. is high fructose corn syrup. So you start removing some of the garbage and the trans fat, which most people listening to this know, but it's kind of obvious. I mean, some people might be still hooked on it in that transition, but if you got to get rid of the bad foods, and then you're going to see changes not only in your memory but in many of these others, especially inflammation, because those are the things that cause it to accelerate. When you increase your insulin levels and you increase trans fat and bad things, those accelerate the prostaglandin pathways that promote inflammation.
I think that we're going to close on that idea. I do want to mention this because this is where I wanted to land it. It's definitely like these rancid oils and all this stuff is just totally toxic, causes inflammation. But I do want to mention this thing about water, and that is we know there is a relationship between chronic inflammation and calcification. So we've got to be very careful of the type of calcium that's coming into our body. In particular, we want to avoid dirty calcium, bad calcium that's coming out of poor quality water, even tap water, any kind of water that's high in minerals that leaves a white film behind. We've all seen that with scale in our bathtub or white formations that show up around your shower head. If you drink that kind of water, what's happening is you're increasing your load of bad calcium, which appears to be associated with inflammation. So we always want to drink a low TDS water. Now, what the heck does that mean? A low mineral water or a low calcium content water in order to alleviate inflammation. Now, this is what the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there's a lot of confusion about this alkaline water stuff. Now, water that's high in calcium is alkaline, but is not good for you. We want water that is, say, for example, rich in magnesium, which is alkaline, but is totally different than water that's rich in calcium. Well water, for example, is notoriously contaminated with too much calcium and therefore can lead down a pathway of arthritis. There's a very solid relationship, over 100 years of medical research on this, between well water drinking that's high in calcium and arthritis. And which, of course, arthritis is always surrounded by an inflammatory response. So if you can get your water purified to the point where you've gotten all those bad minerals out, namely calcium, and secondarily iron, then you've really got something you can hang your hat on that you can drink. Daniel Vitalis and I have been working for years to try to create education out there and free water out there for everybody on putting together a spring resource site called findaspring.com, where you can get low TDS, low calcium water for free in your local ecosystem that's coming out of the ground 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ice cold, anti-inflammatory, real spring water available to you for free on that site. So that's something to be aware of as well.
Yeah, I had a recent 2-hour conversation with Daniel, and he's incidentally he is going to be speaking at your conference, the next longevity conference in Costa Mesa in September, I believe. And fascinating guy. And interestingly, I asked him who his inspired mentors were.